Alright travelers, it's time to talk about two of the most mysterious, most hyped, and most debated characters in all of Genshin Impact. Varka and Alice. Yes, the legendary Grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius we've been hearing about since the very beginning, and the chaotic mother of Klee, the woman responsible for half the explosions in Mondstadt, Alice herself. Recently, whispers in the community suggest that Varka may finally become playable in version 6.4, only to be tossed into the standard banner in 6.5. And Alice? She might not even be playable at all during the Nodcry arc. Yeah. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. Now before we go any deeper, let me remind you of one very important thing. Take this like a puff of dandelions in the wind. Light, fun, and not set in stone. These are still just rumors. Nothing confirmed, nothing final, but the discussion has already set the community on fire. Let's start with Varka. Oh Varka. The man, the myth, the expedition leader who's been mentioned more times than resin complaints on Reddit. Ever since launch, players have wondered when we'd finally see the Grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius. He's Jean's boss, Diluc's former superior, basically the shadowy dad of Mondstadt. So when rumors began spreading that he'll finally arrive in 6.4, the hype skyrocketed. But then came the twist. Instead of headlining a premium limited banner, he could be shifted straight into the standard banner in version 6.5. Cue the collective sound of wallets slamming shut. Why the outrage? Well, the standard banner doesn't exactly have the best reputation. It's where you get surprise kikis, accidental kikings, and Mona number 7 when you were just trying to grab a weapon. Putting Varka, one of the most anticipated characters in the entire game, into that pool feels, to some fans, like serving caviar at a cafeteria. People have waited years, and instead of being the star of a banner, he might just pop up uninvited. But here's where we need to slow down. Hoyoverse has a very consistent pattern. Every region gets at least one major 5-star character added to the standard pool. Tighnari in Sumeru. Dehya later in Sumeru's extended story. Even Mika filled a role as a big but non-limited release. If that pattern continues, Varka fits the bill perfectly. And the whispers about his early kit don't make him sound like a meta-breaking god. Instead, he's shaping up to be more of a solid but not mandatory unit. Exactly the kind of character who usually ends up on the standard banner. If you think about it, it makes sense, even if it stings. Still, imagine pulling for a weapon and suddenly Varka appears in your results. Some players would be thrilled. Others would cry. Either way, it would create absolute chaos. And maybe that's the point. Now let's move on to Alice. Alice. The legendary witch, the mother of Klee, the narrator of the Teyvat travel guide, and the voice who literally welcomed us to the Golden Apple Archipelago. She has been teased, referenced, even marketed, and fans have been waiting forever for her to finally be playable. And now, rumors suggest she won't be playable. Not in Nodcry. Not during this cycle. She might only appear as an NPC or through voice lines. Talk about heartbreak. Some fans call this pure rage bait, and I get it. Alice has been teased for so long, and the thought of her staying unplayable feels like being handed a cake only for someone to drop it into Cider Lake. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Hoyoverse has done this before. Capitano, another massively hyped harbinger, was expected to be playable and instead turned out to be a story-only figure. They know how to play with our expectations. They know how to build hype and then twist it. And honestly, that unpredictability is part of the Genshin formula. So while it's painful to think about Alice staying on the sidelines, it's not impossible. The devs love to subvert expectations, and they've never promised that every popular lore character would be playable. It's cruel, but it's also very on brand. Now let's talk about the part that really has people suspicious. The silence. Usually when a rumor is wild and way off base, leakers and community voices jump in quickly to debunk it. Nope, that's fake, move on. But this time, silence. Radio silence. And that silence feels less like nobody knows, and more like people know, but don't want to be the messenger that makes everyone mad. We've seen it happen before in gaming communities. When the news is unpopular, Reliable sources sometimes stay quiet to avoid backlash. And that quietness actually makes the rumors seem more believable. Add to that the fact that similar whispers have been right before, like the connection between Columbina and Kutar, which later got confirmed in lore, and suddenly these claims don't feel as ridiculous as they first sounded. When you put all the puzzle pieces together, the release patterns, the history of story-only characters, the early impressions of Varka's kit, and the eerie silence, you get a picture that, while disappointing, isn't impossible. So let's recap. Varka might finally arrive in 6.4, but instead of being a banner star, he could slide into the standard pool in 6.5. Alice, as much as we love her, may remain a background character during Nodcry, continuing her legacy as the mysterious which we never quite get to play. Both of these outcomes sound harsh, but both fit established patterns. A major 5-star per region on standard. Story legends who never become playable. Of course, until Nodcry is closer, nothing is certain. These rumors could vanish like mist in Dragonspine. But given the silence, the patterns, and the precedents, it's worth preparing ourselves. So, travelers, what do you think? Would you welcome Varka suddenly popping into your pity pools? Or would you rage quit on the spot? Do you think Alice is destined to stay a legend of lore? Or will she eventually break into the playable roster? Let me know in the comments because I want to hear every theory, every meltdown, and every coping strategy. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button so the algorithm knows you're ready for more Primo Gems. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you never miss another update. Until next time, may your pulls be lucky, your resin never capped, and may your standard banner surprises be the ones you actually want. See you in Teyvat.